always dangerous giving Chris a microphone.
Right, so.
If you want to follow someone funny on Facebook, Chris has always got hilarious jokes, so I will encourage him. Tell us a joke, Chris. Tell us a joke.
Not for this audience.
No, it's not safe. There we go. It's a safe place. It's a safe place, but not that safe, Chris. Before we begin, I just want to say a few words about why we're having this conversation here today. As a church family, one of the things we're called to do is celebrate together and mourn together. We rejoice with those who rejoice and we weep with those who weep. But if we're honest, sometimes it's easier to do the first than the second. When people are walking through suffering, through illness, through grief, and uncertainty, we often don't know what to say. We worry about saying the wrong things. We wonder whether we should bring it up or leave it alone. Sometimes we feel awkward, and so we end up keeping our distance. Yet one of the things we see in Jesus is that he never kept his distance from people in pain. He drew near. He sat with them. He listened to them. He wept with them. He didn't always offer easy answers. He offered his presence. Today, this morning, is an opportunity for us to do something similar. Sue and Chris have very kindly agreed to share something of their journey since Sue's cancer diagnosis. This is their story. It's not a template for how everyone experiences illness, suffering, faith, or healing, but an honest account of what life has been like for them and how they have encountered God along the way. I also want to acknowledge that for some of us, this conversation may feel very personal. Some of us may be supporting family members or friends through cancer treatment. Some of you may have lost loved ones. Others may be facing health challenges of our own. As we listen today, it's possible that some painful memories and emotions may surface. Possible and probably probable. And that's true for you. We want you to know that we see you, we love you, and we are so glad that you're here. My prayer this morning is that as we listen, we'll not only learn from Sue and Chris and their journey, but that we'll become better as a community at drawing near to one another at difficult times in difficult seasons. That we would grow in compassion, that we'll become more attentive to those who are carrying heavy burdens, and ultimately that we will be reminded that even in the darkest valleys, Jesus is very present and very faithful. So, Sue and Chris, thank you so much for being willing to share your story. I just want to as well caveat, we did not pressure you to do this. This was your request. This is your idea, and we absolutely support it and think it's a wonderful opportunity for the church family to hear.
Yeah. And I was thinking this morning how apt that it sat within the Beatitudes series that we've been looking at. So it's such an embodied kind of part of some of the things we've been learning about. So let's just step back a little bit and start from the beginning. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourselves, a bit about your backgrounds, and how you met Jesus?
Okay, so I was brought up in a very strict Brethren background.
Come a bit closer.
Sorry, is that better? Right, so I was brought up in a Plymouth Brethren background, which is very strict, and I was taught to fear God, and everything that you did had a consequence, and basically that was my life until my teenage years when I did the usual rebellion. I went into nursing for a career, and having finished that, I then went into retail, and was quite successful, but also the other side of me was still in a rebellion mode, and I was up to all sorts basically. Fortunately, I had a boss who saw through all this and set me 3 challenges. Basically, if I passed my driving test, I could have a company car. I needed to get out of London because I was seriously nightclubbing, and also with the salary that I was wasting on the nightclubs, I could actually buy a flat. So within a year, I'd done all that, which was pretty amazing. I moved back to St Albans, which was our family home, and one day met up with, by chance, one of the old church leaders. And they went to an independent evangelical church where I had in fact got baptised, but it wasn't very warming. It was very cold. I'd go along and people would say, oh, we'll ring you in the week. And I'd actually wait for that phone call, but it never came. And then a friend of mine just rang me up and she said, Sue, there's a new donut church starting. And those were her words, you have to come along to this donut church. So we're now talking early 1980s. And I went along and it was just so very different. Jesus was love, God was love, the whole reverse of what I'd been told or been brought up to believe. This was the reverse. Moreover, the second time I went, the girls remembered my name, and it was, hey, we're going to the pub for lunch, why don't you join us? I was like, we're going to the pub? And I remember so vividly going and having lunch, and then getting someone to check to make sure what cars were going past the pub in case my old church were driving up and down. I thought, this is crazy. But anyway, I stayed with the Vineyard. It was run by Chris and Fliss Lane. John Wimber was overseeing us, so he was a pretty regular visitor. He was coming over every month with his team, Steve Nicholson and a load of others. And the church grew. I grew with it. I absolutely loved it. We did the first Alpha course. And then on the Alpha course, the whole thing just came together. It was like the missing piece of a jigsaw. And I realized that Jesus is a friend, that God is my Father, and that the Holy Spirit lives in me and is alive. And I just needed to be more open. And I had a very tricky family background. And I was driving through a common land one day. And, you know, with Moses and the burning bush and everything, I was driving through this piece of common land, and then all of a sudden the atmosphere in my car changed. And this voice at the side of me just said, Sue, I'm your father now. And when I got to the place I was going to see this relative, she looked at me and she said, Sue, what on earth has happened? Your face is radiant. And from that moment on, I just really, really encompassed God as my Father. So that is, yeah, that was me.
Wow. Yes, amazing. Chris, how about
Me,
you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have come from sort of a churched background, although in the early days when I was growing up as a kid, it was God's this awesome man who will beat you if you do things wrong. But many of you might know of an organisation called the Boys Brigade. So I joined them, got involved with the Baptist Church Boys Brigade. And every year we used to go away to a Boys Brigade camp, and this was 1975, not the band, the year. So I was at every Thursday they had a sort of communion service, and at the end of the communion service we were invited to go forward to the front to accept Jesus into your heart, and I felt compelled to go. And when I did that, I just had this vision of Jesus on the cross just welcoming me and giving me a big hug. So that was my conversion experience, if you like. And then I was involved in various churches. I moved about. I was originally from Ipswich, moved down to London, joined a Baptist church there. But it was a very much a hymn prayer sandwich type church. I was working in London, and after a while I missed the countryside, so I travelled up to St Albans, had a look round and thought, well, I can still get to London quite easily from there. And was also, so I decided to move up there. I was looking for a few churches. I tried 4 or 5. And I found the Donut Church, again, St Albans Vineyard, which is where I met Sue. Before then, though, I should explain that I used to go skiing quite regularly. Some of you may have heard of an organisation called Master Ski, Master Sun, and one particular holiday with them, I experienced the Holy Spirit for real, and it was absolutely amazing. I just felt, really at peace with God. But yeah, 1991 is when I moved up to St Albans. I met Sue and got involved with the Vineyard Church. As Sue said, it was early days Vineyard. John Wimber, Bob Crane, I think, was another guy that was coming over. And just some amazing things were happening in the church, and it really opened my eyes up to actually being a Christian rather than being a believer, if that makes sense. So Sue and I got married in 1993. We've moved around quite a lot of times, but always felt a drawing to Cornwall. And to cut a long story short, we ended up down here 9 years ago. And shortly after, we heard that Ruth and Nathan were starting up this church. So we leapt at the chance to join our Vineyard roots again. It's lovely to be here.
Yeah, these guys were the OGs. OGs, yeah.
I think we've got a picture of us at the United Reformed Church that we had to. Do you remember that? I remember we all showed you around. It's like, this is where we're going to be meeting on a Thursday night, and everyone was like, really? It smells really weird. And I told someone at the welcome meal last night, I've still got a bottle of Shaken Back from those days. Do you remember? Does any OGs remember that? Had to go around like, we've got to make this building smell better. Anyway. Those are back in the day. Anyway, so looking back over the last year, can you tell us a little bit about the moment of your cancer diagnosis and what this season has been like for both of you?
Okay, so we need to rewind to May 25. I had a previous condition that needed an ultrasound, and in the course of the ultrasound, the person who was doing it suddenly stopped and said, "There's a lesion on your pancreas. I'm sending this straight off." It was a Thursday. She said, "On Friday, when you need to contact your surgery and start instigating some investigations." So that was May 25. Very quickly, I had an MRI. I mean, literally within days. And then we had that dreadful wait. There was like a 6 to 8 week wait, and ringing up saying, "Please, can we have the results?" And that was a real battle. Eventually, we got a 3-line letter saying everything was clear, that I should be relieved, and everything was normal. So that was May 2025. In the October last year, I started to get some really weird, nasty pains. And I withheld going to the doctors for a few days and then thought, actually, this isn't clearing. I need to go and speak to someone. And I got referred straight to Trelisk. And I can't remember the name of the ward, but basically I got there at 11, and then at 8 o'clock in the evening, they'd done some scans. And I was told basically I had stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which we thought we'd said goodbye to in the May, but that was not the case. So they kept me in overnight. Obviously I had to tell Chris over the phone and everything. So it was a real absolute roller coaster. I didn't understand what was going on. It wasn't the best time. And of course, on the back of that, we had to have all the investigations. Neither of us could take on board how something as serious as pancreatic cancer could be missed. So there was a lot of misunderstanding. There were lots of tests. We had to tell family. We had to then work out. We had to tell family, do we tell friends, which way is this going? And the whole thing, it was just mass confusion. Equally, we were being pushed by a little bit by the hospital to instigate an investigation into what had actually gone wrong. So the whole thing was just, it was just like a great big pot of stew, and things were being thrown in, basically. But then, and it was a very black time, I'm not going to lie. My head was black, everything was black. I'd rather go to bed and watch television in bed than, I couldn't see life, and it was just not a good place to be. And I think you were away, weren't you? And so it was Andy who had to cope with me. But anyway, we prayed about it, and then I got a little bit calmer about things, and then we got introduced to my chemo team, if I wanted chemo, and the oncology unit. And then we had to make a decision, are we going to do chemo, are we not? And bearing in mind everything else that was going on, it was just craziness, absolute craziness, and not understanding also, because we didn't understand how a diagnosis could be so misread. Yeah, so I've just written down here that there were fears, some were rational, some weren't, and also all the drugs they throw at you. I don't mean throw at you, it's just you are given drugs for pain, you're given drugs to calm you down, and I don't tolerate drugs very well, so I was high as a kite half the time, really. Anyhow, we made a decision that we would share with family first, and then we would stage who we would tell and who we wouldn't tell. And that was quite important for us, because we needed people we trusted. We needed our church family more than anything. Because for me personally, my church family, like you guys, are probably closer to me than my blood family, because we share our faith, and I can be more open with you than I can, if this makes sense, with my family, because they don't understand where I'm coming from sometimes. Neither do I, but there we are. So it was, I don't know, it was just a crazy time. But in all of that, all of a sudden, things turned, and everything just turned around. My quiet times suddenly were not with Chris, they were with me, but they would be overnight. So 3 a.m, I'd wake up and think, oh, okay, let's have a read of the Bible and everything. So the whole thing was coming, it's just sort of working out. As well as that, we were going through this chemo or not, and we decided, because we had lost 6 months because of misdiagnosis, then maybe 6 months of chemo would be worth a go, which is exactly what we decided to opt for. And we shared with the people that we had decided would be our, like you guys and other friends, Christian friends throughout the country. So that was it. But life as a whole changed absolutely completely. My mobility changed, my accessibility, my eyesight, my eating, everything I eat I have to take a tablet for, and depending what it is, depends how many tablets. My lethargy, it can be excruciating. I can't do my craft work as much. Gardening, no. So basically, since that time, my whole life has changed.
Yeah. Chris, do you want to
Yeah.
share a bit around?
I'll just add
yeah.
a little bit more to that. So when I got married to Sue in 1993, one of the vows I had to take was, do you promise to love, cherish, and etc., in sickness and in health? Well, the health part is the easy part. The sickness is the real challenge here. And when we were first doing this journey, it was initially a big shock. I didn't really know which way to turn, but I wanted to support Sue as much as possible, which meant you know, I had to give up a lot of things. So things that I enjoy that take time out, I now had to refocus and just put all the emphasis on helping Sue, whether that's, you know, hospital visits, whether it's just standing and speaking to her and just comforting her. There's a little bit of men are from Mars and women are from Venus going on as well in our relationship, which can add to a little bit of stress. So, for example, men don't take hints, do we? We don't take hints. So there would be occasions where Sue would say something in a hint sort of way, and I wouldn't get it. I just wouldn't get it, wouldn't pick up on it, and then she'd get frustrated that she wasn't understanding what she was trying to, what I was trying to do, or what she was trying to tell me, and got a bit heated at times. And then I said, well, you have to speak to me directly. Just tell me in black and white. Don't give me hints that don't work. So there's a life lesson there. And equally, when, you know, Sue's feeling down, you have to learn to, you know, be there to comfort her. Instead of, you know, there's a few jobs, for example, around the house which I've had to take on. Traditionally, she would do the cooking, and she loved the gardening part and stuff. Would do a bit of washing, but I'd sort of verged onto doing some of that anyway when I retired. Yeah, I was becoming a domestic goddess. So, yeah. I didn't wear a pinny, though, the butt cheeks showing out or anything like that. Thank goodness. Yes, so yeah, the relationship does change. It becomes challenging because it's centred on Sue's health and making sure she's happy. But I would say that I certainly have just had to learn to take one day at a time and not focus on the future. We don't know what the future holds, but we know God's with us.
Yeah. Amazing. I think one of the things that you shared is around how important community has been. What have you learned about supporting people who are going through illness, and what would you like us as a church family to understand?
I think this is the main reason that I really wanted today to happen, because I meet some amazing people on the unit, on the chemo unit. I'm a Wednesday girl, so I go along 3 Wednesdays a month, and then I have a week off. Doesn't always work like that, because sometimes I react badly to the chemo and I need 2 or 3 weeks off. So I'm just on a 2-week break now because I had a really bad experience. But I'm someone who absolutely loves people. I love people's story. If you say hello to me, I'm always going to say hello back. And, you know, if you want to engage in a conversation, I'm your woman. So I've had some amazing conversations in the waiting room while we're all waiting for our chemo. We can wait. I mean, I've waited up to 4 hours for my treatment. And in turn, if my treatment hasn't happened on time, I've kept people waiting. So we are a community, really. And chatting, the last time I was on there, I was chatting to my neighbour in her chair and to one of the nurses, and we were just all agreeing we are actually a community. We're all on the same journey, and it is another safe place for us because we can be open. Sometimes the one thing that has hit me and hit me quite hard, and I didn't see this one coming, was over winter. Chris and I would sometimes sit up in the balcony because obviously we didn't want winter bugs, and I was quite vulnerable. So it was great to be absolutely back with church family, but we were up there. And as the weather warmed up, so consequently at home I was going into the garden more, I was going out, you know, Chris was taking me out for trips and everything. So I started meeting people I probably hadn't seen for maybe 5-6 months. from the diagnosis. So my chemo started on New Year's Eve. So from New Year's Eve probably through to May, I hadn't actually been out into the village. We live on the Lizard. So I hadn't been out, I hadn't met anybody. And also, we'd only told a few people in the village that we trusted of what was going on. And on the back of that, some people didn't recognise me. Some people actually didn't want to recognise me. And again, it's this, what do we say? What do we say to you? How can we approach you? And it got to be a really big problem for me because I was reacting to other people's responses. Equally, as the news opened up within the village, we ended up with some most extraordinary conversations, really bad, trust me, bad conversations. You know, people trying to be understanding but digging holes and getting deeper and deeper, and you're just thinking, maybe stop now. But anyway, yeah. But one of the things that in this time, and Andy, you were leading worship, and I'd been listening to a lot of, not older vineyard music, but older, say from 2020s, whatever, and I'd had about 3 or 4 songs in my head over this particular week, and we decided that we were going to come to church. And every single one of the songs that I had, you played, and it was just like, I'm here, Sue, you know, I'm here, I'm with you. And that was like, okay, so this is another part of the journey. And I had this picture of being on a track with stones, and what I had to do was kick the stones out of the way. I had to reach out with my right hand to take Jesus' right hand. I had to say to him, can we pull over for a minute? Can I catch up? And these have been my conversations with Jesus. With God, he's my Father, and he's encompassing everything. But it's such a special time. And every time that I've had a doubt, because I do have doubts, I'm human, I do have doubts, and every time they've crept in, then something has happened. But breaking down, the big thing was breaking down this barrier of communication and talking to some of my Wednesday community on the unit. I'm not alone. And, you know, one lady, and I was in tears for her because she has a shared garden with, I don't know, she's in Falmouth, but she has a shared garden with a neighbour. And if she goes into the garden, the neighbour goes inside. So whereas before they used to have coffee, the neighbour doesn't know how to speak to her. And then this lady, she just turned to me and she said, thank you, because I'm telling you what my journey's like, and you've told me your journey. And what do we do? And it ended up with a huge conversation with the nurses. But again, we were all together, you know, and it is a problem. People don't know what to say. I don't think as a nation we deal with death very well. I think we brush it under a carpet or something, but death is actually part of life. And yeah, it's how we cope with it. That for me has been, you know.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
It feels like every time we have a conversation on the phone, you talk about either your quiet time, the times you've had in worship. You have been so honest about asking the why during your journey. How would you describe your relationship with Jesus having changed, or what has been the change to your prayer and your worship life as well?
So my relationship with Jesus has definitely changed. Someone said to me, gosh, I bet you're really angry with God. And I can honestly say I have not been angry once. My big question is why?
Yeah.
You know, I don't understand this journey. Yeah. But then it's trust. You have to trust. You know, he knows the plans he has for me. And I've got probably the worst type of cancer that you can have, but I'm a year in. And, you know, the last time I had a scan, the actual main tumour had shrunk. And we've got another scan tonight. But I don't understand, so it's trusting. It's trusting and talking. Instead of sending up a prayer list or sitting down with Chris and let's pray and we do this and we'll do that. My relationship now, I would say between 3 and 6 in the morning, it's almost like a Samuel thing. And I wake up and it's, okay, let's just have a chat. And so I stick some lovely worship music on and listen to that. I do some Bible readings. And then I turn the light off and I just lay back on the pillow. So where are we going now? What's the next bit of the journey? So my relationship is actually closer, more personal. It is definitely. It's definitely. Yeah. I don't understand. I really, really do not understand. What has happened for us is that within this time frame when we started this journey, we had 2 or 3 friends who were also doing the cancer journey. We ended up not so long ago with 6 friends. Sadly, we've lost 3, but then on the back of that, we've had 2 more join us, and in fact, 1 on Friday. And so we're all trying to support each other. I have no idea what the plans are, what God has for me, but it's just trusting. Yeah. And he knows what he wants. He knows the plans for me. He knows my journey. He says, choose the path, just let me, I know the path I have for you and all the rest of it, just seeking guidance and, if a stone comes up in the road, just kick it out the way.
Chris, how has life changed for you? You said you shared a little bit earlier, but
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things where, as I said earlier, you have a life doing things that you like, but the emphasis then on the news is to refocus. So there's certain things that I love doing, which is being part of a theatre group. I like to get out and play golf. 1 or 2 other things. I'm a volunteer of the RLLI, so I've sort of kept most of my RLLI stuff because it's important that I keep it. I know Sue is quite keen on me, doing something, being able to get out of the house, but it's not always possible depending on how she is. So as I said, we take each day as it comes. We can't plan ahead for the future, but we know God's in it. I'm just reminded of Psalm 23. Though I walk through the valley of death, God's there to comfort us, to walk alongside us, and I really feel that that's the case here. I've never felt abandoned. I don't think we've ever felt abandoned by God. I think that He's there walking this journey with us, and we're encouraged by the church here, all the help we've had. Not only just for people who've prayed for us, we've got a wide circle of friends that over the years, church friends who have been also praying for us, but also, we've had a lot of practical help. People who cook meals for us, people who look after the dogs. They'll take us on trips somewhere, if we're short of help with transport. So we're very grateful for the support here. And bless you guys for your help and thoughts and prayers.
I know that, there's been many moments where you've particularly sensed God's presence on this journey, Sue, isn't it? And his guidance or encouragement. Any of those that you could share with us?
Yeah, I mean, every time I've hit a low, there's been a high sent to me. It's just lovely. So I hit a low, and then it's sometimes not immediate, but then there'll be a ping on the phone, and it'll be a friend saying, "Oh, I've just got this word for you," and those mean the world. So we had a visit from Nathan, and I love this one. Nathan came to visit us, and we were the three. It was Chris, Nathan, and myself, and we were all sitting in our conservatory having a chat. That was fine. And then it was probably about 2 weeks later, I had hit a low, and I got woken up at 3 o'clock, and I thought, oh, okay, and had my quiet time. But within the quiet time, I suddenly, literally physically, ended up, not physically, but ended up in the conservatory. And Nathan was sitting opposite, Chris was off to my left, but there was someone sitting on the arm of my chair with his arm around the back of it. And I thought, well, who the heck's that? And it really didn't make sense. But then this person started laughing. And then it was one of Chris's jokes, which was bad. And I suddenly realised, oh my goodness, that's Jesus. And it was just like, wow, you know, you're here, you're with me. Another one was a word that Ruth had, that another friend had sent me in the week to cheer me up again. I'd be feeling a little bit low. And this friend sent me a message to say, I just want you to know that you're sewn into the hem of Jesus' gown, that you are sewn in, that he's before you, he's behind you, he's to your left, to your right, he's above you, he's below you. And then Ruth came up to me and said, you are in, the Sunday that we were here, she said, you are in Jesus' robe. And it's instances like that there where you cannot doubt that that is God, that you know that he is with you. And that is where my trust lies. It's 100%. And you just know. Yeah. And can I share the last one?
Yeah.
Because the last one was extraordinary. I'd gone through a period of people not speaking to me in the village, not knowing what to say, old friends literally trying to get past our house as soon as possible, hoping I wouldn't come out. And it was pretty obvious. And I was in a real low. And we had a very close friend staying with us. And I was sharing with him, because it was upsetting, what was going on. And I'd come into church, and we'd lost a friend that week, so I was not in a good place. And I'd come into church and aim straight for the lift to go upstairs. And then Nikki came up and just gave me this huge hug, and I thought, that's good, that's great, thank you very much. And then we disappeared. And then Bill and I came to church the following week, and I'd shared this experience of feeling low, that I'd come into church and I hadn't, not been acknowledged, but it was all very busy, and I'd waved to people and hadn't been, you know, it was me, I wasn't in a good place, it's not you guys, it was me. Anyway, so we'd had this very in-depth conversation about how people actually do not know how to speak to people who are poorly. And we had some other friends, so there were 5 of us, and we just talked it through. And at the end of it, Bill, he's a therapist and everything, a Christian therapist, he said, Sue, you've got to call this out. You have to acknowledge this, you have to speak it out for your own good, as well as telling people that it's okay not to know what to say to us. You know, if you want to know how we are, you know, Bill said, if you want to know how people are, it's okay to ask. If you don't want to know, don't ask, it's fine, absolutely fine. So Bill and I made our way to church. We'd lost, I don't know where Chris had gone, but he wasn't there. And on the way through, we were just outside, someone walked past, and I said, oh, hi. And then this person just turned around and spoke to me. And I was so blown away, and Bill looked at me, and he welled up. I welled up, and we had this conversation. And then when we walked in here, there was more and more people saying hello to me. And Bill and I sat at the back, just absolute Rex, we were just crying our eyes out. We were just, oh, this is so wonderful. And then the person who'd actually said hello to me stood up during the service and explained what had happened to him very, very recently. And I thought, my goodness me, you know, God had gone before that situation. And even Chris, when he saw the state of Chris and I, of Bill and I, it was like, oh, what has gone on now? But as Chris said, something got broken that day. And whatever it was, whatever hold or chain that was stopping me from understanding what was going on, and equally my response to people, because sometimes can have a bit of a temper with all the drugs, it's not pleasant, and I get frustrated, but I was being told that's okay, because you've got to listen and understand that people do not know how to treat us. So the next time I was on the unit, I had a lady next to me, and she was quite open as well, and we were talking this through. And how can we break down the barriers of terminal illness or a situation like we are? How can we break that down and make ourselves more accessible? And one of the nurses, she joined in the conversation. She's a lovely lady, she really is. And she said, oh, I quite like this. So she pulled up a chair, and it ended up with a threesome. And the lady next to me, she said, well, have you tried wearing headscarves? I was like, why would you wear a headscarf? She said, well, it's an indicator to people that you're not feeling well. And I thought, well, I'll give that one a go. And then all these little, going up to people and asking people how they are, you know, and being more approachable myself. And basically, that's why I wanted to speak to you guys today, because you guys have been phenomenal for us. You really, really have. And the prayer messages that I get through, the worship songs, some of you have sent me worship songs that have just absolutely touched me at the right time, in the right place. So.
Amazing. So as you wait for this sort of next scan results, and I guess whatever lies ahead with that, how can we as a community best sort of be praying for you and supporting you as you go forward?
I've thought about this question a lot, and we don't know, well, the scan is today, we'll know the result next week, and then we'll be told whether or not I'm going to have some more chemo. I'm 6 months into it. My body might be saying no. We don't know, but we'll know next week. We will have to make a decision, do we want chemo to continue? Because this last round, I'm on cycle 6, so a cycle is a month. So I'm cycle 6, so 6 months down the line. And this last time has been quite bad, hasn't it? It's not been the best. So it's a decision that we have to make. Are we willing to put my body through more? So wisdom, definitely. The side effects, if we do go ahead with more chemo, it's the lethargy. I can't describe it. I really can't. It can take, you know, from my brain saying, right, let's stand up, it can actually sometimes be half an hour before I can physically get the energy to stand up. And if you're someone who's used to jumping out of a chair and you can't do that, that's not good. I would also, it's trusting. I'm worried that I might use chemo a little bit as a security blanket. You know, if I'm doing chemo, then I'm doing something positive against the cancer, whereas maybe that's not what God wants me to do. So it's listening out for God, and it's also listening out and trusting Him wholeheartedly.
And I think what struck me as we've talked with you guys is just what an incredible hope-filled journey this has been. Like, it, you know, there has been difficult times and really dark times, but actually there has been this sense of hope which has overarched the journey. And what what's the hope that's sort of carrying you forward as you step into the next part of this journey?
My hope is that my faith stays strong, that my wobbles don't take over too much. Oh, sorry, my wobbles don't take over too much. And also the fear. I don't want fear to creep in and take over. I really, that is something that is a little bit huge at the moment. And the thought of standing alone without chemo, it's a journey that we've not done yet. So my hope is that my faith will get stronger. That lovely song, My Faith Will Get Stronger. Yeah.
There was a verse which really spoke to you, wasn't it, from Jeremiah? I don't know if
Yeah.
you're going to share that.
Yeah. So I've got the one thing, well, it's standing at the crossroads and look for the ancient paths and ask where the good way is and walk in it. And then Jeremiah 29 is, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope in the future. And those are what I cling to. Those are absolutely what I cling to. I have no idea what the future is. I don't know. Chris doesn't know, but God does.
It's such a privilege to support you in this journey, and thank you for your vulnerability and your honesty in sharing with us this morning. Just a really super practical one, just before we finish. You recommended to me a book which I hadn't heard of before, which I think you guys have found helpful, and I found profoundly helpful as well. It's on Audible, and you can buy it in Amazon, called Dying Well. It's morbid, but it's flipping fantastic in terms of practically laying out some of the decisions you have to make, some of the conversations you have to have, practical stuff, spiritual stuff, like what does death look like, nature of heaven, all of those things I just thought was really, really helpful. So what's the guy called?
Is it this one? Yeah, it's the book called Dying Well, and it's by a guy called John Wyatt. He is a professor of whatever sort of medicine that is.
Yeah.
But basically, he hits it full on. And if you look back through history, in the Middle Ages, as a nation, we were one of the leaders in dealing with death, and we've lost it now.
Yeah.
But his book helped us. And don't agree with all of it. I've got to say, no, we didn't agree with all of it. But it gave us a really good grounding.
Yeah.
And was really helpful.
Really helpful.
Yeah.
Should we stand, if able? It'd be great to pray.